Hey, goddess.
Hey, Goddess. Welcome to the Hey Goddess podcast. We hope you enjoyed this video and all of our videos. Please like, follow, download, do that thing that you do, whatever it is on your podcast platform. And we are so happy that you're here. So, who are we? This is my beautiful soul sister, Angie Kay. She's the author of Creation Codes Rise of the Goddess, Navigating Spiritual Awakening and Kundalini Energy. If you're looking for an ascension guidebook full of compassion, personal trauma, triumph, and tips on how to reclaim your goddess energy, this is it. We will link it in the description. You can get it on Amazon, easy peasy. She is also a goddess CEO, divine feminine embodiment and law of attraction coach, and a master sound activator. So to see more of Angie Kay and what she does, check out her website at angiek.world, and we will also link that in the description.
Thank you, Wendy. Wendy Lou here, my soul sister, my Thelma and Louise, for this journey. To tell you a little bit about her, she's an amazing writer, a published author. She's a professional editor, a Reiki Master. She's an all-around energy magician, and she is a homeschool mom. And so you can check out more about Wendy at her website, www.wendy-lou.com, and we'll put everything in the description box below.
Yes, we will. And what are we talking about today? This is a big one. I feel like
This
this is
is
going to be a big
big
one. Yeah,
because we have been talking about 2025 since early 2024, you and I,
I think
and
so.
kind of some of the hits and messages we were getting about how transformative 2025 is. So I'm excited to get into this. I think it's going to be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that we decided to do a 2025 video because, yeah, I don't think we've missed a year yet
I don't think we have. No.
since we started years ago. Yeah, so I think let's just delve into it. Let's delve into 2025. And
Yes.
I think we should start with that first message when we were just kind of tuning in that you were getting around the financial stuff,
Yeah.
because I think that's a place that so many people have been questioning, especially people that are, resonating with our message. They've been questioning this kind of financial upheaval that, some people have noticed in their own lives, or even just like, the changing of the guard, so to speak, I guess. I don't know if that
Yeah.
makes sense, but it's kind of like the different financial options that have opened up and become available and more mainstream and just more is known about it. And so I think this is a place where people have really been shifting or asked to shift. Even some people who've had very stable businesses and income coming in a certain way have all of a sudden found themselves looking around going, okay, why is this happening? Why is the money not
Yeah.
coming in the same way that it was before? And so people have really had to shift their consciousness and their experience around their finances. So that's why I think this is a great place to start. And I mean, I think that we can shift into everything, career and relationships and life purpose and, health and well-being everywhere throughout this video. But I think, yeah, let's start off in this category because
Okay.
for
And
some reason
who
that's what came
doesn't want to
through.
talk about who doesn't want to talk about abundance and hear about how you're going to have more of it, right? Like that's what
Yeah.
we're seeing really for 2025 is just new opportunities. So I want to point out too that Angie, you have already done like this beautiful January update for your group, and the big theme of it was new. Like that's what
It
I got
was.
from it. It was like so many things are going to be new and new
Yeah.
ideas, new innovations coming in. And so yeah, talking about okay, all these new, maybe not a brand new thing in 2025, but these newer ways of creating a financial stream of income that
And I
have
think that became so
that have been
big
coming
with,
up.
yeah, exactly. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, that's
That
okay.
became so big with COVID too, where people were
Mhm.
looking for different avenues. And I think this is just kind of a culmination of all of the soul searching and
Yeah,
thinking and looking that people have, experienced and kind of gone through different channels and streams. So keep going. Yeah, that's just, I wanted to
absolutely,
pop that in.
absolutely. And I just want to make sure we caveat like we're not promoting any specific type of investment or anything. Obviously, do whatever your intuition guides you to do, but just know that it's sometimes it's a good thing to maybe research some of the new ways And that could be anything, whatever that looks like for you. And maybe it's even you bringing in a new way. And so 2025 is going to be all about bringing in the new, either through you or through somebody else, but allow yourself to see the new ways coming in and to expand in that way. You know, we always, there's so much fear around, oh, how am I going to how am I going to pay my bills, right? How am I, and especially for light workers, I feel like we do struggle with this in a lot of ways. Like very few light workers were born rich. That's just the way it works for some reason. And so we've had to figure a lot of it out. And just the whole, that whole paradigm of, I've got to work super duper hard and get this part-time 3D job that I hate to pay my bills, and then I do the light worker thing on the side. That's gone. That's gone. 2025 is not going to see that if you're still holding on to that, I do feel like 2025 is really going to give you the opportunity to let go of that. And I even, just to share too, I even had pulled, we were pulling cards just for fun to kind of get it, you know, to get our focus going before we got on. And I pulled the Eight of Swords, which is, you know, there are more opportunities than you think. And I'll just show everybody because this is a gorgeous deck. If anybody cares, it is the Light Seers Tarot, which is beautiful. But it's more opportunities than you thought. It's open your eyes to the new opportunities and unbound yourself. You know, let yourself see more avenues of doing everything, not just creating financial abundance. But we are both seeing, I think, for light workers especially, this uptick in and really it's an expansion, right? It's not like, oh, all of a sudden these things that you've been working super hard on are going to create money. And maybe they will, but I think for a lot of people, it's going to be an expansion of, oh, this could also be a way that I could create money. And maybe it's even more, what I'm getting for a lot of people is it's even going to be more passive, right? Than you might think. Where, you know, what do we say? Work smarter, not harder. Well, work, you know, follow your heart, follow your passion, and allow that to give you, you know, to bring the abundance in. And so it's really going to be about tuning into that, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And you know, that's my platform that I've been writing about since
Mm-hmm.
October in the book that you're editing for me and got a CEO, which is really it's a financial freedom consciousness template that I was gifted by my guides back when I first started being an entrepreneur. And I was like, you know, I got to figure this out. And I realized that I did not have all of the right information around money, like so many of us, right? Like you said, so many light workers, we've just not received the higher level information around money. And so I think that was part of the struggle is why we went through the things we went through, because it's like we need to find a better way and we are the way
Right.
showers. So
Yeah.
let's dig deep within ourselves and find it, right? Like to understand abundance consciousness and wealth consciousness and all of these things. And you know, that's why I feel like I was gifted that. But as it goes with me, I like to try things on before I really step into like a public platform to share, like, hey, this
Right.
works.
Right.
And so I tried it on with myself and then, of course, shared it with my clients and have seen amazing results by, you know, using that financial freedom consciousness process that I teach in the book, right? And it is so much more expansive than what we've been taught, where it's like, okay, you have this like linear thing, you have this job, and that's how you receive your income, right? And so many of us have been taught this, and like, yeah, then you invest money, but you know, that's for later on, and you
Right.
only do
Don't
it in the
touch
certain
it.
ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, the certain ways that we've been told, right? And of course, Wendy and I are not financial experts, so you know, in no way does this replace information from, you know, if you have a financial expert in your life. We are just sharing our personal experience with you right now. And that's what I really speak about in my book is my personal experience around receiving this abundance consciousness download that I received and then applying it to my life and watching the things around me grow. And things happened in ways that were so unexpected. It wasn't this linear thing where it was like, okay, I'm going to start this business and all my eggs are in this basket of this business. And this is where I have to receive all of my financial stability from. It wasn't like that. And
Right.
yes, I did receive a lot of financial stability and a lot of financial success through my business. But what I noticed when I was using these concepts was I was receiving abundance from everywhere. At the same time, places that I had had investments going that had done very little in my life up until that
Mm-hmm.
point. It wasn't until I expanded my consciousness around wealth and financial freedom that it all started happening. And I think that's what is going to be happening in 2025 for
Yeah.
people is this consciousness it's taking off, right? People are understanding that it's not about just this one thing anymore. And I think COVID really cracked, I mean, that was one of the things, like one of the blessings is it cracked people open to this idea that, oh, okay, maybe this wasn't always the perfect way because once you realize that the stable thing you were told to do, right, quote unquote, stable, really
Mm-hmm.
maybe was never stable. Maybe
Yeah.
stable, or maybe stable is not the right word, but maybe predictable or um, safe. Maybe really none of it
Mhm.
ever was, right? And people have those moments in their lives when they have to realize that. And I was laid off 3 times in 2008 and 2009 during the housing crisis. So I had to realize that early on, where it was like, oh, this safe and stable path that I chose, maybe it really never was. Right?
Right. Right.
Maybe corporate jobs really aren't like that. It's just this facade that you think it is, right? And so I think that's what the pandemic, one of the beautiful things that came out of that was that people really looked at these things and said, okay, well, maybe if there really isn't any certainty or stability or any of that, maybe that's all an illusion. Maybe I should just do what I would love to do anyway.
Hey, revelation, right? Yeah.
Right? But it is,
Yeah.
but you have to, it's almost like you have to have that tower moment for you
Mm-hmm.
to realize
And
that,
we had a literal global tower moment with COVID, and so many people were
huge.
like, when they realized the freedom. And yes, a lot of people, I think one of the things too that is just a reality is as long as you work for someone else, and I'm not saying everybody should be an entrepreneur, but as long as you work for someone else, that could go away at any time. That could go
Yep.
away at any minute. And so what I would, and this is actual, I mean, I don't know, this is weird coming from me because it feels like actual financial advice, but look at where in your life you're spending money that you don't need to be, and maybe you can redirect that or hold on to that and build that up until you know where you want it to go. But for me, I realized that there was this whole avenue that I was putting money in that I don't need to be anymore. And so it's kind of given me a whole new perspective of, okay, I do have, and it opens you up, right? Like you were saying, expansion. It opens you up then when you realize, oh my gosh, I have more than I thought and I can do this. And now being newly single, like for the first time since I was 18, I've never had to really handle all my own finances. And so it's really kind of put me in a place where I'm like, I want to learn this and I want to figure out how to create my own. And so when I realized, oh, I've got this whole avenue that I can redirect into something that will make, and things, when you open up to the expanded consciousness around it, things just fall into your lap. I mean, they really do.
Yep. And that's the beautiful thing about it. It's that so many of us have, had our blinders up forever around money and
Mhm.
finance and that it had to be through the job, through the business, and that was the only way.
Yeah.
And those are channels. Like that is one way, and that is a very viable and wonderful way. But sometimes you're working as hard as you can possibly work. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like what gives, right? Like you're
Right.
doing as much as you can. It can't always be about the action. And
Yep.
so opening up those other channels and realizing like, wow, maybe it was never about that. Maybe it was about the
Mm-hmm.
worthiness. Maybe it was about my ability to receive. Maybe I just didn't realize that I was not open to receiving unless I made an
Mm-hmm.
action. And then I was worthy of receiving. So it's kind of like
Right.
looking at all of these different ways that we've, told ourselves stories about money and finance and kind of breaking through and realizing, okay, I'm going to look at my experience. I'm going to look at my bank account and I'm going to go, all right, I'm the one that created this. So what is it that I have to be believing right now to
Mm-hmm.
create this external circumstance? And so that's the beautiful thing I think that people have been doing in the last few years. And I think more and more of it is coming and more
Mm-hmm.
of that work is getting done. And that's really what's going to shift our planet into this higher wealth consciousness and this, financial freedom consciousness. And you and I talk about this all the time, this consciousness and way of being that really works for everyone finally, and not just for, some top super elite
Right.
people that are
One to
benefiting
1%.
from.
Yeah.
Right. That are benefiting from, everyone having this kind of linear viewpoint of this is how
Yep.
the money comes to me, right? So this is a more expanded way of being that's really going to serve more people. It's going to serve everyone ultimately, right? Like,
Absolutely.
because that's how consciousness catches on like wildfire. Like one person, one innovator, right? It
Yep.
has to be an innovator out there. It's
It
scary to be
does.
the innovator because people will look at you. And definitely eye roll. Originally, when I told people about this consciousness, and I'm talking just within the last year, because I was gearing up to write my book. And so I
Mhm.
was telling people, like, this is a thing. And I had told my clients, of course, which is a comfy, cozy space to share with
Right.
people that already
Yep.
respect your opinion, right? And so that was different. But when I started telling people outside of my bubble, outside of my business, like, this is something I want to teach and I'm going to write a book about it, people eye rolled me. They did not believe that that was true and tried to
Mhm.
tell me that why that couldn't work. And so it was interesting. And now I see people coming around, some of the same people in situations and
Mhm.
groups or whatever that did not understand my message originally. And that's what it takes to be an innovator, right? So those of us light
Absolutely.
workers, we each have our own thing. Like you innovate around parenting, right? Everybody innovates in a different way. And so a lot of times when we bring our innovative idea forward, it's not well received. And so we
Yeah.
people throw in hand analysis back in the day when I was studying that. They would call it the tomato fears because it was like back in the day on the stages, they would throw rotten
Oh, throw
vegetables.
rotten, yeah, tomatoes.
Right? So that's where it came from. So it's the tomato fears that we have
Oh,
around it,
that's
but it's really that
hilarious.
fear of
Yeah,
rejection that we get
absolutely.
around bringing forward. So that brings me to, okay, I'm just going to flow with this. I hope you're okay with that. I
Yep,
think we can
go.
step away from financial. Let's move
Mhm.
into more around purpose. And are you here to innovate something specific? And have you been quiet about it? And that's
Mhm.
not a bad thing. Maybe you've been studying
Have
it for
you been
yourself.
have you been bound in
Yeah,
yourself, right? Not letting yourself
exactly.
see anything. Yeah.
Exactly. Maybe you've been thinking, I want to try this on for myself. That's something that I definitely do. And you too, like with your parenting,
Hmm.
the things that you've done in parenting that are different and outside the box. And so sometimes we try it on for ourselves in our own lives or with our clients or the people that we're directly closest to, right? And then once you have some data, like you have some history, you can say, we shifted this consciousness or this way of being or whatever, and these things changed. Now you have a platform, right? Because you can say this
Hmm.
happened. So maybe you're someone that's been doing that, right? Maybe you resonate with what I'm saying right now. And you're thinking, okay, yeah, maybe it's like time to take the next step around whatever your innovation is, right? It could be anywhere from, something that is in a big area like finance, right? Or something, maybe it's small, maybe it solves a very specific problem for people, right? So whatever it is, right?
Yeah,
Maybe it's time.
small.
I'm getting it's time. Like bring your innovation forward. And
Yeah,
it's time to let go of the fear of rejection, even though it will probably still be there, but it's time to stop letting that control
push through it.
you. Are you
Absolutely.
getting anything around
Yeah,
that?
and I was just going to say, we say small, but small does not mean less important. Sometimes the
Hmm.
smallest thing. I love you made a reference in your newsletter around the guy who invented toilet paper. It's like that might have seemed like a very small thing to him at the time. He just wanted his friends and family to know, that, oh, I invented this thing, isn't it great? And they all eye rolled him, but he was trying it and he loved it. And now we can't. It's worldwide, and we can't imagine a world. I mean, obviously there are countries who use it more often than because the bidet exists, but we can't imagine a world without it now. And that's just it's a very basic and simple example of we forget that there was a time before toilet paper. It's one of those things that it's like, holy cow, like that's just been around forever, right? No, it hasn't. Somebody had to innovate it. Somebody had to bring it through. And so small does not mean less important. And so what even seems, and I think that's in a lot of ways, that's maybe the reason why people are doing this, right? Are tying their own hands because they're talking themselves out of its importance, right? It's like, oh, well, I've seen these amazing results in my life, but that's just me. And what if nobody else? I feel like you're right. I feel like we can't wait until the fear is gone. It's about sharing through the fear. It's about, feeling out the room and okay, this is the right time and moving through that fear instead of wait, because if you wait till the fear is gone, you will never share. You'll never do it, and that innovation. And somebody else, we've talked about this too. It's like you plucked that idea out of the ether because it was aligned with you. But if you don't do anything with it, somebody else will. And for a lot of things, that's a good thing, right? Like they say three people invented the light bulb or something, right? At the same time, because it was in the ether and we needed that global kind of thing to happen with that kind of invention. And so a lot of times, and it's not about competition, it's about there's room for everybody. to invent. So if somebody else is inventing the same exact thing as you across the ocean at the same time, that's a great thing. That's a beautiful thing because that means that that is going to be a worldwide innovation. And so I feel like when we find people who do the same things that we do, a lot of times we go, "Oh, how dare they? They're doing my thing." But I think 2025 is going to be just really let go, helping us let go of that competition, that conflict, that thinking that, "Oh, this is my idea," that ownership of the idea too. Like the innovation, you are simply the channel bringing it through. And yes, you have every right to reap the rewards and benefits of that because that was your mission to bring that through. But at the same time, we're going to be letting go of owning it, of needing it to be ours and only ours, and not, and being really restrictive on how it's shared. That's kind of what I wanted to, what I was getting to. It's like, let it be shared, however it, comes through organically, let it be shared worldwide. And I think even in my own tuning in, it's like one of the messages I keep getting for 2025 is the things you want to bring through are going to have a bigger impact than you think. Like,
Wow.
and so that should be, I feel like maybe that alone could give people enough of a little push, like, oh, okay, well, maybe I do need to start sharing. And a lot of times too, we start sharing and it doesn't feel good. And then maybe it just needs a shift or a redo or a revamp or whatever. Or you need to, sometimes we put that back in the ether and we let somebody else take it. We've talked about that a lot too. It's like, if you don't do anything with it, maybe that's okay. Maybe there's something else for you out there. So I think that's
Yeah,
important to know too. And I wanted to get to, I'll just flow if that's okay. I wanted to get to
absolutely.
the eight. I had pulled a couple cards and I got the 2 8. So I did get this one, which I love that it's an eight because we are in an 8 year right now as we're recording this, the end of January, the
Can
22nd
you,
of January. We are in
yeah,
this 8 year, and so we're leaving this energy
just
of.
say it out loud for those that are just on audio that
Oh,
are,
sure. It's
yeah.
it's Eight of Swords. And the Eight of Swords is about, you've had yourself bound and you can't see the opportunities in front of you. And so the 8 year that we're in right now, that's maybe what a lot of us are becoming aware of. It's the awareness of it this year. And so now we're moving out of that. And then I had pulled another eight, which is Eight of Wands, and the image is really simple. It's just all these wands coming together, but the message, the traditional message is speed. Everything is speeding up and happening fast. And so when you make that decision, to unbound yourself and to really expand and see these opportunities in front of you, then everything moves fast. And so I think 2025 is going to be about, it's a 9 year, we're coming to the end of a cycle, we're completing things, but we're also getting ready to really truly create in a big way. And so things are really going to speed up in 2025. We may see the year just speed by and get to 2020, get to this time next year and go, oh, what the heck was that? What just happened? So I think it's
I
going to
could
be
see that.
amazing.
I think so too. Yeah. I think I mean, really what's coming forward, it's like the year of innovation. Just
New
based on what
ways.
we've said so far, I'm kind of like recapping just since the beginning of, we've just been flowing. But yeah, I think it's the year of innovation and the abundance that comes from that, right? Because so many of us have been trying on these different ways of being, but then not necessarily sharing in a public platform about it. But I
Right.
think that's the next step. It's like there
Sharing.
are all of these amazing different ways of being that people maybe didn't consider, in every area of life, from like you said, the big categories to the, like you said, the small is just as important.
Yeah.
The toilet paper is just as important. Like, let's just be
Yeah.
real, right?
Yeah.
So, so yeah, it's like, yeah, you just don't know where your thing is going to take off. Like the toilet paper guy, and I could be wrong about this. I'm just recalling like what the story was. I'd love to go reread it. I believe it took off in
Mhm.
hotels first. So
Oh,
in
okay.
hotels, it was like they caught on. They're like, oh yeah, we need to have this for our hotel. So, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe that's where it took off. And then, it just sort of like became a household staple from there, right? Going
Mhm.
forward, it was, however many years it took. But that could be the thing, like your innovation could take off in one area that you're not even thinking of right now,
Right.
and then it could become like the most common thing, like as common as like a toothbrush or toilet paper or whatever, right? So it's like just start. And of course, like I loved what you were saying about, there is really no ultimately the ownership of ideas because at the end of the day, everything comes from universal mind, right? So we're plucking these
Mhm.
ideas from universal mind, which is just one mind,
Right.
except you went through the trials and tribulations of your life to get to the place where you could be the one to say, universal mind, you asked the question, right? You asked the right question. how can I, it always starts with us, right? How can I shift this thing in my life that I really don't like? And the guy who, like, just going back to the toilet paper guy, and I will link the video for January since we keep talking about it.
Yes,
Sorry,
yeah.
it wasn't a video, it was a blog post. I'll link the video to, or I keep saying video. I will link the blog post link
The
below
thing.
the box. I'll link the thing. So going back to that guy, so, and of course, I lost my train of thought saying the thing about January, but um, yeah, he probably in his own life wanted a solution for something, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
how it begins. And so, really, like the ownership at the end of the day is your own journey. Like you journeyed what you journeyed to get to the point where you asked the question, and it was just the right question and just the right
Mm-hmm.
circumstances, and you were just the right person to bring it through because of your story, your challenges, what you've been through. And so that's where the ownership comes in, right? Like
Right. And you have
ultimately, all the
every,
ideas are available to all of us, but we have to have the right
yeah,
experience and like set of circumstances to ask the right question. And so
right,
that's why it came through you, and the parenting stuff came through you, and some of the more financial stuff came through me because I'm so much of an entrepreneur. But it was like there were
right.
just certain things about the entrepreneurial journey that just seemed antiquated or wrong, or not wrong, but just part of an old paradigm that I was like,
Yeah.
there's something weird
With
about this.
parenting as well, like with
Yeah.
everything, right? It's part of that old program. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So we're bringing through these fresh programs. I pulled All
Hmm.
Eyes Are Open. I'll show it for those that are on
Yeah.
the YouTube video. So All Eyes Are Open. This card came from Guides of the Hidden Realms. This is a newer deck that came out this year, Colette Baron Reed.
Mm.
And it's inspired vision, clarity, perception, revelation. All eyes are open.
And it's
And
just a
so
bunch of eyes. It's the
it's just a bunch of
vision. It's just
eyeballs.
a bunch of eyeballs open. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like those
Yeah.
eyeballs that you can buy for cookies and stuff. It kind of reminds me
Yeah.
of that. I love those. So
Googly
I
eyes.
think that the message is pretty clear here. I mean, I think it's, this huge, like third eye, like you said, veil within ourselves has lifted for so many
Mhm.
people, right? And then what does that mean? Well, a lot of times, and maybe we should just segue into relationships with this one because that's what's coming to
Yeah,
me.
we
What
definitely
it
should.
can mean is places where maybe your veil hid the things that you didn't want to see, right? And so you only could see the best in people. Gosh, I know this has been so much of my journey. Like I only
Yeah.
could see the higher part of them, right? And I just didn't want to see anything else about them. And then I realized some of these things, some of these certain relationships really held me back. And it wasn't until I kept opening my third eye and really working that part of myself, right? Because that is part of what I do in my job. And so, of course, I wanted to evolve this part of myself. And so, as I evolved that part of myself, I realized that there were just people out there that were ultimately not for me, right? They were
Hmm.
holding me back, and they were doing actually really painful things that I had just accepted because I only wanted to see the best in these people.
Right.
And and of course, I'm not saying this to be negative. I'm saying this because it's true. And when you continue to open up your third eye space more and more, you really see what's for you and who's for you and what's not for you. And this could be situations, groups, it can be
Right.
anything, jobs, this can go into anything in your life, right? And you
Hmm.
see what's not for you. And so there is a phase of acceptance that can come along with a lot of grief, and it can be somewhat devastating for people to really see the things that were not for them. Like even the financial things you and I were talking about, like these are some of the ways that mainstream society has quote unquote said were the best ways to,
Right.
invest. And maybe that wasn't true. Maybe I'm just going to be honest, maybe that really only benefited like some of the top elite people. And
Right.
maybe there are better ways, and I know there are, right? There are
Yeah.
better ways that maybe whoever's listening right now are going to innovate that's going to help a lot of people, right? So bring your innovations forward and don't
We're
be
ready for
afraid.
them.
We're ready. Don't be afraid to look at your relationships and to call out the things and the people or the situations that are actually not benefiting you, and let it be okay, and let yourself go
Mm.
through the grief of that. I know for me that took
Yeah.
years to accept certain relationships that were not healthy for
Yeah.
me.
And
So
some
I
of
don't
the
know if you
red
have anything to
flags.
add in on that.
Okay, well, and some of the red flags, could be if we want to tie all this in is, are there people in your life who just continually discourage you bringing in new ideas and continually discourage you doing new things and doing things your way? Really look at them, and we're not saying to completely walk away, but maybe it's time to take a break from these people and then see. That's when people will show you who they truly are, is when you need to step back and kind of go into your own journey and and cut all those cords with them. That's when you typically, when people show you who they really are, they will either respect your time and space and be there for you when you're ready, or they'll go, or they'll lash out sometimes too. In extreme situations they might lash out, and then you'll know. And so if we tie it all together too, continuing to tie it all together, everything that we talked about, it's like the innovators too. If you are somebody, and honestly, anybody who's listening, you have something to bring through, whether it's
Mhm.
big, small, whether it's just for your small community or it's for the whole world. If you're hearing this, you have something to bring through, and you get to receive the financial abundance that might bring, if that's what it's meant to do. And so what we're trying to do is, in what we've been working toward too, is also letting go of, like I said, letting go of competition and conflict in any industry, right? There's room for everyone. Like even in our light worker community, like there are a lot of people
Mhm.
who do really, really similar things, and people will get their people will get bent out of shape out of it, and that's their journey to go and go, okay, there really is room for everyone, because everyone has got a different audience. But you also get to receive the things that, when you bring something through, what do you get to receive? And as long as you're heart centered and, then continuing to share the things from your heart, then that's just going to keep flowing. And so I do think that a lot of times we go through phases where we think of Jesus and the apostles and how they gave up everything and walked away from everything, and even didn't even have shoes and just were barefoot and just started following him. That's old paradigm as well. Like Jesus actually doesn't want us to live that way. We're allowed to have pretty things. We're allowed to have, decent places to live, and reliable cars and all these things. We're allowed to, I tell my female clients all the time, which most of them are, we're allowed to feel beautiful. We're allowed to buy pretty things and to wear jewelry. So that abundance can come. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is I'm hoping that in 2025 we are letting go of feeling any kind of guilt or shame around wanting to treat ourselves. I think that's super important, and we earn it, right? We earn it through the sharing. And so that's not a negative thing. It's not a low vibe thing. It's not an old paradigm thing. The old paradigm thing is feeling guilty about it. It's
Yeah.
because I think the more guilt you have around it, then that's how people fall into, like, I had somebody in my life who I loved dearly and was addicted to retail, like buying things, right? Like retail
Okay.
therapy was her addiction. And so I think because there was so much guilt and shame around it, I think it traps you in that space, right? And so whatever that can be. So letting go of the guilt around it, allow yourself to receive the abundance. That's what this is all about. 2025 is going to be expanding into that and bringing that innovation through, and then going, oh, somebody wants to pay you $1 million for it. Yes. Yes, you don't have to second guess that. If it feels good in your heart, then that's exactly what is meant for you. And then it's what you do with that $1 million, right? But you're allowed to buy pretty things with it too, right? So I just want to put that out
Absolutely.
there too, because I'm tired of the shaming of, oh,
Mhm.
well, you're a light worker, why do you, oh, why are you shopping? It's like,
Yeah.
why do you have a new purse or whatever? It's like, we're allowed to have these things.
Well, yeah. And I always think back to like, we already are spirit. So why would you
Mhm.
bother coming into a physical, material reality if you didn't want to experience and have fun and play with material reality? You
Yeah,
you wouldn't. You already have that opportunity to just be spirit. This
right.
is a unique opportunity where you're in a material experience and you get to play with material reality. So that could mean you get to, play with what kind of house do you want to live in? What kind of car do you want to have? What kind of purse do you want to have? That's
Yeah,
the beauty of this experience. That's different than our normal state, which is just being spirit. So I think, and of
right.
course, there's a balance to everything, right? Like you can
Yeah.
go way too overboard on materialism, of course, and then lose
Well, and
yourself. And it just
that's where
ultimately
there's
you
a
wouldn't be
wound.
happy. It would just feel
Right,
hollow.
right.
It's not that it would inherently be bad or that you should feel immense guilt around it. It's just eventually you would hit a wall and you would just feel hollow because you wouldn't
Yeah,
be honoring the spiritual side of yourself. So it's about striking
right.
that balance, of course.
It's
And I
about
think so many
realizing
light
it's
workers I just want to say, they've in other lifetimes taken those vows of poverty. And you and I have found this
yeah.
around working in the Akashic Records so many times as monks, as nuns, as priests, things like
Mhm.
that. there's those vows of poverty that people have taken. And sometimes those are in parallel lives or past lives or however you view that. You can bring that into your current lifetime if that is still a
Yeah.
vow that's active for you. And so you can, just even state without, you don't need to go into the Akashic records right now, but you can even state, I'm releasing all vows of poverty because you
Hmm.
might have made them, even think of like there were situations on this planet even different than that, but think of like indentured servants or something like that are working really, really, really hard to pay off a debt to someone, but they never get to see any of the money. Things like that, right?
Right.
That have
Yeah.
happened on our planet where people, yeah, have taken these vows of poverty. So it's so important to just release that, all of that once and for all, and just start fresh because it's like you don't need to do that. The
Yeah.
only thing we need to always focus on, I think, and everyone can do whatever they want, of course, but I think the best thing is to just stay in balance with all of it, right? With your spiritual
Right.
side, with you do have the accountability to your physical body, like right? Like you have to
Absolutely.
have, I mean, I guess you don't have to have shelter, but your physical body very much enjoys the cozy shelter and the food, the nourishing
Yeah.
food. And there are certain things that you're responsible to in the physical material world. So it's like, where can you be in balance with that? That makes you the most happy, right? Like one person's going to be happiest in a mansion, and that doesn't have to be
Right.
what everybody wants. Someone else is
Right.
going to be happy in their, 1 or 2 bedroom apartment, and that just brings them all the joy in the world. So it's finding out the balance for yourself, like what works for you, and then not worrying about what anyone else is doing or thinking or
Yeah.
feeling any guilt around it. That's what's
And
coming to
your
me.
own and your own desires might shift too throughout your life. Like I used to think I wanted the big house and the really expensive cars and everything, and I fell into that. But really, ultimately, it wasn't feeding my soul. It was succumbing to that programming that everybody else was, operating in. And now that I've broken free of that, it's like I want a small, simple space, and that makes me happy. And not just because I got tired of cleaning a big house, but that was part of it. But I did want to say too that, and if you notice that maybe you are um in excess of doing something that in excess, then that's a wound to look at, right? Like what are you trying to hide behind, or what are you trying to bury under maybe the retail? Like this person that I talked about that was addicted to retail. It's like she just was unhappy, and so she was trying to hide. She thought that it would bring her happiness, and when it didn't, she just kept doing it more and more and more, and it still didn't bring her happiness. And so, hopefully you can, and somebody else in your life might point that out too, right? Like I know that's happened to people that I know too. They're like, well, I didn't even know until somebody said something to me. I didn't even know that I was doing that. And then that's your mirror, right? And then that makes you look at, okay, why am I engaging in the excess of this? And what am I trying to avoid? It always comes down to
Yeah.
what am I avoiding looking at, right? And we're
Yeah.
not, this
Every
is what we're
addiction.
leaving, the Eight of Swords, where we were
Yeah.
blindfolded, like we're not going to be blindfolded anymore. Everything's going to move fast. And then this last card that I had pulled is the Ace of, or actually it was the first one I pulled is the Ace of Wands. And guess what this whole message is new ideas. And you can tell
Yeah.
by the picture, it's like the third eye just on fire. It's new
Yeah.
ideas coming in, but it's also the Ace of Wands is like the big yes card. Like when you pull the Ace of Wands in a reading, it's like whatever you want, the universe is telling you, yes, you can have it. You can
Yep.
absolutely have it, but you have to expand to that frequency to let it in.
Exactly. Yes, I love that. Yeah, and that totally makes sense with all eyes are open too, with what you
Yep.
just said. The card I pulled
Hmm.
goes right in alignment with all of that. So that,
Yep.
yeah, that's perfect. I think we should say a little bit about, since we're kind of on relationships right now, let's talk a little bit about romantic relationships, kind of
Yep.
where we see that going. The thing I see is for sure, like, I want to piggyback on something that you just said because it did bring up romantic relationships. And that is like, where in your life are you giving too much power to these things? Like you
Mm.
said, like someone that's like retail therapy, addiction is a good one. I mean, because that's basically an addiction, right? So
Yep.
in some ways, people can have a romantic relationship that's like an addiction, right?
Hmm.
And so it's kind of like looking at that, what I'm seeing is, in 2025, and this is coming through strong to me right now, I'm just going to say it, people that are um, really meant to move on from relationships are going to. So if
Hmm.
they're holding on for dear life to something that is no longer serving, that is going to fall away. And more aligned relationships are going to be coming in. And what it's going to force people to look at is these places where they've given their power away and their happiness to someone else making them happy in a
Right.
relationship, right? So it's kind of like wherever in your life you kind of offloaded that responsibility to someone else, it's like you're really having to look and take it back. Like, nope, I'm the one responsible for my happiness. I'm the one responsible for, finding the career path that lights me up and continuing on that path. I'm responsible. Someone else out externally is not responsible to do that for me. Yet
Right.
of course, everyone in our life enhances our life and is a mirror for us, like you said. And of course, it's fun to interact. We all love connection and interacting with other people, right? That's why we seek out relationships and love them, right?
Hmm.
And intimate relationships, especially because we want that intimacy, the physical intimacy, the spiritual, emotional. I mean,
Hmm.
everything that comes with the vulnerability of being in an intimate relationship is amazing. And sometimes, I can see myself lumped into that. I have offloaded my happiness onto my partner. Like, okay, well, you're my partner, so you're supposed to make me
Make
happy.
me happy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not their job,
Right.
actually,
No.
right? So it'll be establishing that happiness, that baseline of happiness within yourself, and of course, everything around you enhancing that reality is really what's going to be big for 2025 for those that are
Yeah.
on the awakening path. Obviously, if you wouldn't be listening to this podcast if it wasn't you. So I don't
Yeah.
even think I have to go into who that's for, but
Right.
but that's what's coming. So aligned relationships, aligned friendships, aligned business partnerships, all of these things will be. And I know a big piece of 2024 was releasing things that were out of alignment too, as far as relationships, because we were
Hmm.
getting that last year. And so
Yep.
this year it will be, a continuation of that, but then a coming together of the ones that are perfect. And like you and I went through that this summer where, here Wendy and I have been sitting across from each other for like it feels like 1,000 years, right? But which
Yes,
it
I know.
probably is actually like in reality, but like, the last 10 years or whatever, having these conversations and we just go, oh my gosh, we would be the best podcast partners of all time. And like we
Right.
just were like, why didn't we think of that before?
Why have we
But
not done
that's
this?
what's
Yeah.
coming in the energy. It's like, both of us had to come to a place within ourselves where we were like, not going to, put too much pressure on the other in a way. This is just what's coming through to, of expectation or whatever. And then all of a sudden we're
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, we are the perfect podcast partners. And then of course other things have blossomed from that for her and I and other ideas and channels and things. But it was just, it could be a person that's been sitting in front of you for 10 years and you might all of a sudden
Yeah.
go, oh my gosh, we would be the best lovers, or oh my gosh, we would be the
Yeah.
best, whatever. But in our case, podcast partner, it's a business partner. It could be, someone that I mean, what are some of the other
Well, for me, I know for me
friendship?
personally,
Yeah, it could be
for a
friendship.
lot of people, even romantic relationships, like for a lot of people, like I kept getting a message that I already knew him. And I'd go, nope, I don't know anybody. Like there was nobody in my life. Well, then come to find
Hmm.
out we grew up together and we'd just forgotten
Hmm.
about each other's existence for a while, right? And so I did already know him and I kept getting that message and I kept going, mm-mm, no, I don't know why I keep getting that message because I couldn't think of anybody in my life that it could be, right? Except I
Right.
did know him. I had just, we had just been out of each other's lives for so long. So it really, again, it all comes down to just being open to receive, right? We don't have to force or push anything. But I did want to say too, I feel like, COVID brought this beautiful purge for a lot of people. And I'm not trying to diminish the negative aspects too, but we do try to focus on the positive and how to navigate through, and keep moving forward. And so COVID brought this, people call it I forget what, there's a term, but it's like the COVID divorces, right? It's like people it either made them stronger or people were getting divorced left and right. And that was by design. I really do believe cosmically that was by design. Like a lot of people needed to leave relationships. And so I do feel like we're through kind of that en masse splitting up. I mean, I
Mhm.
think there are still people holding on, but I think for the most part, by now, December 22nd, 2024, I think everybody who was holding on to relationships that were no longer serving them, especially long ones, they've left. They've left, or it's that separation is beginning. And so that's why we kind of see to 2025, like if you came here to be in a union, in a romantic union, then 2025 likely is when it's going to happen, only because we've been seeing that year for, I think, since 2023 even, we were seeing that 2025 that a lot of people were going to come into union with a romantic partner. And so there are also people out there who are great being alone, and that's fabulous. And it doesn't mean that you'll never find a partner, but I am kind of talking about this like it's a bit of a smaller circle, but it's like this. There's lots of different names, but there is a whole movement of like divine union that is kind of all one soul group, I think, on some level, that everybody's coming together in 2025. I see it, and even if it's December 31st, 2025, it's happening within that time frame. And so if anybody wants to know more about that, we can also do. I know we've got like twin flame / divine union on our list. We just haven't tackled that topic yet, but we are going to do a video on that because it is such a controversial thing. Sometimes there's lots of definitions, there's lots of perspectives on it, but
And
just know that
misunderstandings, I feel like.
misunderstandings, absolutely.
Yeah.
But just know that when we talk about it, we mean the divine union that is going to lead to a joint mission of some sort, right, together. And that
Yeah.
doesn't have to be romantic all by itself, but for the romantic ones, I do feel a lot of those coming together in 2025. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. Definitely. And yeah, I think that's beautiful for relationships. I think a definite up-leveling of relationships
yeah. And it
is
and it
in
likely won't
order for
look anything like
2025.
you think it's going to look like. Like for me,
Yeah.
it knocked me over.
Yeah.
And it's
And
not what I expected.
for sure. And it usually is that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
The thing
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing too is like these even higher level partnerships in like how I was talking earlier. It's interesting that you segued into that because it was kind of, I think, the stream I was getting, and then you were sharing about it from the romantic perspective. But I'm getting that it's for everything. It's coming
Mm-hmm.
for everything now for your elevated business partnerships, your elevated
Yes.
collaborations like yours and mine, the elevated, yes, of course, the romantic relationships, elevated friendships. These things are coming in and are really going to, as they do, push you forward, help you see that divine mirror, really allow you to expand. I mean, because these expansive, when you meet people in your soul group, oh my gosh, I mean, they can like I always think of it like there's certain elevator buttons. They're almost like elevator buttons. Like that's how I see it in my mind that need to be pressed in order for different parts of your gifts to open up or different pieces of your ascension process. And it's kind of like the universe sort of waits until this like perfect moment until you can meet someone in your soul group, someone really influential to your soul group, because they share a very similar DNA makeup. And so essentially have all the same buttons, is how I look at it. This is a really
Yeah,
simplified way of explaining it. And
sure.
so they actually, you can activate for each other the certain buttons. And so
Yeah.
it's really powerful when these encounters happen. And there's going to be more and more of them in 2025, I believe. And then this really elevates people to the next level, right? It's almost like, taking the quantum route is meeting someone because yeah, they share a really similar DNA to you. And so it's
Mhm.
almost like that mirror is so strong because it's so similar, right? The
Right.
frequency
And
is
it's the
so
soul
similar.
recognition too, right? It's
Yeah.
like an instant, like you feel like you've known them forever. And that
Yeah.
can be true even for somebody who's not meant to hang around for the rest of your life, right? You can have that soul recognition. You do what you mirror each other for as long as
Yeah.
you're supposed to, and then you go on with your own journeys.
Yeah, like the
That's
things get activated. You take the activation. Sometimes you take
absolutely.
the activation and walk. Sometimes you take the
Yeah.
activation and there's a beautiful, divine mission of some sort that
Yeah.
happens, right? In whatever way it's meant to, in whatever type of um, way that relationship is meant to go. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that for 2025. That feels big. Those instant activations, I think that's the point I'm trying to make. Those instant activations that come through these divine, and I call them divine soul connections in my book. Divine soul connections is going to be taking place for more and more people, and
Mhm.
they can kind of knock you sideways because so much activates at once.
Right.
I mean, it just you all, and you're in this mirror and you're looking at this mirror and it's so intense and you're going, I
Mm,
don't think I ever wanted to see this much about myself, but you have to, and then you have to feel
right.
it. But
That's the
it
scary part.
elevates you, so scary, but it elevates you like nothing else could. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
worth it.
I have so much gratitude for those encounters and the times that they've happened. And,
Me too. Yeah.
and for the ones that, I get to still be in connection with and, I just love it, you know?
Yeah.
So, and sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't get to stay in connection. So
And I
it's interesting that some of them are, like you said, some of them are meant to be for a minute, and some of them are meant to be longer.
Right. And I think it's where we got this old, idea of love, romantic and otherwise, right? Where we thought that they completed us, when really what it was is activating something within you. And then that was the opportunity for you to grow. And I think that's where we would stop, right? And so you look at how love has been interpreted and how they're still portraying it in these cheesy, Hallmark movies, is that, oh, you find somebody who fills some voids within you, and then that's where you stop, and then you just exist together happily ever after, right? When really happily ever after becomes stagnant because neither one of you is actually looking at, okay, what is it? How can I be this for myself rather than like we were talking about earlier, putting it on somebody else. It's giving you the opportunity. I don't want to say forcing, but it's giving you the opportunity to look at how can I see myself as not needing to be completed in any way. And,
Yeah.
but they'll activate you. And I think that's where we kind of had the misunderstanding that, oh, they're completing us, but then we wouldn't follow through with what we were meant to do. And so I think it's a whole new perspective on relationships. It's like, and it doesn't mean that they're not going to hang around. It just means that it's meant for you to be able to show up for yourself in every way.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I think that's
And
great.
like
I
you
think
said,
that's
have
great.
these.
Which topic did we not cover? We didn't really cover health and well-being. I think a little bit we covered well-being, where it was kind of like the things that are detrimental to you and not helpful for your growth are falling away,
Right.
those types of really, or you're going to see, and then you get to decide, right? Like, is this good for me or not? Now that I see,
Hmm.
I get to decide. And I think that's a beautiful segue kind of off of relationship. Let's split off into health and
Yeah.
well-being for a minute here, because then I think
We'll
we
have to
hit the
edit this out, but I
categories.
actually only have like 4 minutes and then I
Oh,
gotta
okay.
take a koi.
Okay. So let's just leave it
Sorry.
at that for well-being, and then we'll just say, you know,
And I
to
was gonna
wrap it up,
say,
and we'll put everything in the
yeah,
description box
I was
below.
gonna say too, it's like just, just remember yeah, and my battery's dying, so we got a couple
Okay,
things.
so let's just see.
But yeah, I was gonna say that, just remember that the body is going, when we purge, when we grow, when we expand, that everything has to move through the physical body. And so just keeping that awareness, I think throughout 2025 is going to be huge. I think a lot of people are going to find healing of the things that have been plaguing them, hopefully. But it's all about, expansion and allowing that. It's like anything, allowing that vibrant health to be your reality. Call it in.
Yeah. And whatever way you're called to work on that, like it's interesting, like you know this, Wendy, like all of a sudden, I was the girl that could never fast, right?
Yes,
I was
yeah.
like, oh, that's for everybody else. Like I cannot do that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'm like talking to you and I'm like, oh yeah, I've done like 3 fasts and then I started intermittent fasting. And
Yeah.
like I'm a huge fan and I'm sleeping better. But I was
Mhm.
someone that just had kind of shut that down. So just listen to your intuition. Like whatever you're asking for your vibrant health and the affirmations you're setting for 2025, well, then of course you have to follow through with aligned action. So if something's
Yep.
dropping in, like, it was kind of like I was being tapped on the shoulder by my guides, like, hey, why don't you just try fasting? Just try it for a day. It was kind of like that. They kind of knew
Yeah, yeah.
that we had to walk hand in hand through this because I was the girl that would be like, oh my gosh, hell no.
No,
Maybe
not
I
that
can't say
fast,
that on
never.
recording, but heck no. And so then, yeah, so then I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this because, I just feel really called and now I'm loving it. So I think that's a good place for us to end it is, in overall for the whole year, whether it comes to health and well-being or whatever, like listen to your intuition now more than ever and
Hmm.
really take those aligned action steps because that ultimately is going, this year,
Remove the
it's like a
fear,
year of
whether you're
fruition.
afraid.
Like
Yeah.
it's coming to fruition. The seeds have been planted. Like this is a year of, really reaping the rewards of all these seeds that you've planted. So I think we can wrap it up there. If you feel like we covered
Mm,
everything, is there
I
anything we
do. I think
missed?
that's a beautiful way to put it is where we are going to be seeing the rewards of all the work we've been doing. in 2025. And I think for a lot of people, that's going to be such a huge relief because 2024 was not easy. 2024 was possibly the most challenging years so far in since I have had my initial awakening almost 12 years ago now. 2024 was a tough one, but it also brought me beautiful things that I didn't think I was going to get. So it was a roller coaster. But 2025 is going to bring more calm, more balance, more settling into the good things, and more clarity around what we don't want anymore. So I think it's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Off
I
the
love that.
chain, y'all.
Yep, let's make it off the chain. All
Yep.
right. Well,
Thank
we
you for
hope this
being
serves
here.
you. We'll put everything in the description box below. So
Yes, we
check out
will.
everything that we have, and we will
Hmm.
see you on the next episode.
Bye, goddess.
Bye, goddess.